Hey guys, it's me, EODGamer here. As you guys requested, this is the version 2.5 4-star tier list. And if you haven't already checked out the 5-star tier list, I'll link it in the card above and the video description, so go ahead and check it out later. 4 stars are trickier to rank in general compared to 5 stars, so I decided to split them up into their respective elements. You can find the respective elements in the timestamp below. We don't waste time on this channel, so let's jump right in. Anemo and Hydro are pretty easy and quick, so I'll do them together since the segment is just too small. miHoYo knows the valuable elements in the game, and the quantity of these characters just blatantly shoves it in our faces. Arguably, the 2 out of the 3 best elements in the game, Hydro and Anemo, are exactly like water and air. We need them desperately. Unless of course you're a rock, then you can just do rock things, I guess. And without a single doubt in my mind, Xingqiu is double S tier. Unparalleled off-field Hydro application with amazing battery and elemental skill nuke with sacrificial sword. You won't have any regrets building him, and he's probably the most important support to build in Genshin, if not the second most important, depending on who you ask, of course. And I think that his only weakness is that he's largely single target in nature and requires units to actually auto-attack, meaning he doesn't really fit in a purely quick swap team. But yep, double S tier still, no doubt. We now go down the metaphorical waterfall to talk about Barbara. Barbara does amazing healing and is probably the best healer 4-star in the game. Unfortunately, Genshin isn't a typical RPG that values bishops and priests. So while Ocean Hued Clan does add some value to her kit in terms of damage output, I would actually argue that Barbara is a Cryo unit, since she always is frozen. B for Barbara. The 5-star alternatives to Sucrose are the Anemo Archon and arguably the best character in the game, Kazuha. Yet, Sucrose still doesn't fall short and remains relevant in the meta today. A combination of her constellations, Drilling Tales of Dragon Slayer, and a fusion of crowd control and damage buffing capabilities makes her more consistent in performance in terms of meta compared to even the Anemo Archon Venti himself. Double S tier and probably the 3rd best 4-star in the game, and a must build if you don't have Kazuha or Venti. If we are talking about exploration, Sayu is definitely double S tier. Crystal flies, speed rolling without stamina and mining rocks, while Zhongli or Razor's E is on cooldown. Plus, she also procs double Anemo resonance. Unfortunately, this isn't an exploration tier list, and her kit competes with Jean, and is generally healing focused in nature. But 4-piece VV is insane value, and not everyone has the luck of getting a 5-star Anemo character. And you need 2 for the Abyss, generally. So if you don't have Jean, Sayu might be reasonably placed in A tier, otherwise, build Jean. I'm generally a person who prefers to eat the vegetables on his plate first before the meat. So let's start with Tomato. If we ignore all other characters and think what does Toma offer, it's actually pretty good. Shielding, Pyro application, resistance to interruption. Unfortunately, miHoYo balanced him with a pretty poor HP scaling and a very high energy cost requirement, combined together with a pretty clunky internal cooldown on his Pyro application. Overall, in isolation, this should leave him at around A+ tier for versatility and use. But his kit requires me to take into account of characters of other elements, and we can't ignore that for the most part, Zhongli, Diona make much better shielders, and Yanfei at C4 makes a much better Thrilling Tales buffer and shielder than Toma, leaving Toma's only real niche as an off-field normal attacking Pyro application support, which is a niche that for now remains undesired. I'll leave him at B tier at C0 due to the niche nature of his kit. Of course, I could see him higher, especially if a player lacks of a particular shielder. To balance the skill, we next talk about Yanfei. At C0 to C3, her kit plays around being a main DPS. Although a decent DPS with good numbers, Xiangling still competes very strongly for a DPS Pyro position, and you likely won't run Xiangling, Bennett and Yanfei in the same team. This heavy competition pushes Yanfei to A tier if she was just used as a main DPS, but C4 changes her kit pretty significantly. With C4, Yanfei possibly turns into a supportive unit that buffs her team with Thrilling Slayers and procs double Pyro, and also provides a shield at the same time, or even ran with a prototype Ember to provide healing and shielding. This versatility is incredible, and is rather unorthodox for the most part. I like versatility in character roles, because it means stretching the value of every resin you spend, and for this, I rank Yanfei A+ tier if she's above C4. Xiangling. For most newer players, it's difficult to understand why so many people say she is broken. But let me explain, in under 30 seconds or so. Basically, her Q burst has the ability of snapshotting. What it means is that it takes all the stats at a particular period of time and assumes that same stat for the entire duration of her spinning fire blades. This means that a Thrilling Tales attack buff, a Wolf Gravestone passive buff, or Bennett buff and other attack buffs has 100% effect on her blades for the entire duration. The best part is that she doesn't even require to be on the field for the duration of her burst to do damage, making her an extremely low field time unit with high impact and is very synergetic with Bennett. Genshin is a 4-character team game, and any character that adds insane value by being off the field is valuable, and Xiangling is an example of one of them. Before C0, I could argue she's S tier because there's some downtime, but clearly after C4, once she gets good uptime on her burst, definitely double S tier, and is the best character to invest out of the free characters in the game. Next, we have Xingyan, a hybrid between offensive and defensive capabilities. She provides shielding, some form of burst damage, and also eventually gaining the rare physical shred. Putting this way sounds quite nice. You have a character that can do damage and protect at the same time. Unfortunately, Xingyan scales in an inefficient way, requiring a balance between pyro damage, physical damage, attack, and defense, plus overstacking into crit damage to maximize her use of her C2. While she can work, her broad stats requirements makes her inefficient to gear versus most other characters who focus just on a few stat lines, making her a generally luxury unit to build in terms of resource requirements. And for this extreme inefficiency alone, I feel it's difficult for me to recommend this character in the current meta. B tier. Amber is not actually totally bad, like the memes. The issue with Amber is twofold. Firstly, her constellations are super difficult to get, being a standard banner 4-star, and also she requires a 5-star weapon Elegy of the End to get great value. She is actually possibly the fastest Cryo shield shredder with her burst in the game that has low cooldown and energy costs, making her also a great team noblesse buffer. She's found competitive play currently as an Elegy of the End noblesse buffer for a Hu Tao, Xingqiu, and Anemo team, but struggles to find value elsewhere. For the fact that a character still has a niche, she doesn't deserve the C tier, at least in my opinion. B tier Amber. I saved the easiest for last, arguably the best character in the game. He boosts damage, he heals, he cleanses, he provides energy regen. MiHoYo made a mistake of building such a broken character, and we players should save some bank by building Bennett. Now, let's start with Geo's newest addition, Yunjin. In my opinion, she's one of the best designed characters in terms of her kit. She has a niche that she fulfills, and she works excellently well in that niche from C0 all the way up to C6. Her scaling of defense and normal attackers also allows accounts to increase their artifact farming efficiency while also bringing other characters into the meta. MiHoYo really needs to design more characters that don't require C6 to function, and I even tried some unorthodox builds for her, and somehow she still carries it well. In my opinion, Yunjin will be SS tier in the right comms and would definitely see a solid spot there if MiHoYo keeps focusing on normal attackers. But for now, I think we are in a phase of transition and would leave her at S tier for the current 2.5 game state. But nonetheless, excellent character and a really good job MiHoYo. Another excellent character that in my opinion should have been a 5-star is Ningguang. She can be played DPS, burst support, geo damage buffer, battery, and even a healer with prototype Ember for a mono geo team. She shines in this abyss with the golden wolf lord, but most other geo characters can handle it well too. I'll rank Ning as S tier for her sheer versatility, burst damage, and value she provides to a geo team. The only caveat is that outside of a geo team, generally only Yunjin and Noelle would still maintain their effective ratings. If there's one character that can do it all as a 4-star, Noelle has got to be that one. At C6, she protects, she attacks, both together at the cost of field time. Before C4 Goro, or if you don't want to play a healer Ningguang, Noelle was the only Geo healer available outside of C6 Zhongli, of course. With Ito being released into the game, he competes directly with Noelle for the field time DPS slot. Ito trades healing and shielding for a more offensive kit. Overall, Noelle is extremely free-to-play friendly and does plenty if you need a healer. But sadly, Bennett and Diona just offer much more value overall in this niche, and since her kit competes outside of the Geo characters, I have to factor that in. Plus, her boring style doesn't really appeal to me and I just don't like her design, so A tier she goes. But I'll rearrange the Geo tier list a little bit so I don't face any particular tilt from the community. I'm not farming dislikes today. Unlike Sarah, Goro is a pretty functional unit at C0. Although many have argued it's better to use Bennett prior, but a mono Geo team allows for the flexibility of running a Raiden national team with Bennett in the other half of the Abyss. Similar to Sarah, he becomes insane in his niche at C6, and I rank him S tier with C6 and A+ tier without. Moving on to Electro. Beidou is an offensive burst support unit. While most people who start playing Beidou play mainly for her flashy counter style, it's her burst that puts her high up in most people's tier lists. Her burst discharges bolts of lightning that jump from target to target, which means that if there are more than one enemies, you will notice a great uptick in Beidou's damage potential. Granted, without C2, her burst doesn't feel amazing to use, but for the sake of accurate representation, I'll be rating Beidou based on having at least C2. Because the current floor 12 rotation has plenty of mobs that are weak to Electro, or exactly 2 enemy targets, Beidou's kit is perfectly suited for this rotation, and my tier list has to reflect this. Double S tier, but it's useful to know that she is weak to floors with just a single target enemy. And most of the time, you'll find Fischl being a pair to Beidou, given that she batteries Beidou's very high burst cost and allows her to go for more damage. But also recently, she has been popularized in team comps like Sukokomon, where you apply Electro, Hydro from Kokomi, and Pyro, and swirl all of them together to form overload and vaporize reactions at the same time. I'll link a clip above which talks more about this concept in simple terms if you're interested. Overall, excellent off-field Electro applier, battery, and sub DPS that competes, unfortunately, with both Ye and Raiden, although in slightly different ways. Personally, I'll rate her as A+ tier because of the 5-star competition, but I can see arguments of her being in the S tier. This one might hurt some people's feelings a little bit, but y'all are here for my honest opinions, and I just wanted to say that Sarah is probably my favorite 4-star by design, but she is dysfunctional at C0 and extremely clunky to play. She gets better with C2, but Bennett is just too strong a competitor for her to even replace him in an Electro team. It's only at C6 does she become an absolute general, and C tier without C2, B tier with C2, I'll leave her at S tier, with a caveat that she's C6. Razor is a tricky one. Most people, myself included, play him as a physical damage dealer, and his kit includes the rare defense down trait with constellations. The issue with Razor lies in his damage typing. Generally, enemies in the later part of the game have very high physical resistances, and without huge multipliers like Melt and Vaporize, it needs a lot of investment and resource to remain relevant through the late game. However, recently MiHoYo has been introducing many normal attack buffers into the game like Yunjin, and maybe possibly more in the future. Overall, I'm ranking him as a physical DPS, and I'll rank him A tier. Lisa has the same issue as the free starter 4 stars, in that her constellations are extremely difficult to obtain, but she does have some crazy charge attack multipliers and a very rare defense down for enemies in her kit. Unfortunately, the current meta doesn't really care too much about Electro reactions, but could see some upside if Dendro reactions are favourable. I'll leave Lisa at B tier taking into account the other Electro supports, but I still think she can be played very well in the right hands and comps. Sumeru might change this as well. Chongyun is an offensive Cryo burst support character with very low energy cost for his elemental bursts, his E also allows him to make any melee character into a Cryo applier. Although incompatible in some comps, such as Electro Keqing, he became slightly more popular after the introduction of Shenhe, and Cryo Keqing also saw a resurgence in play. Unfortunately, his conditional Cryo application and niche team setup means he's not as versatile as some of the other Cryo supports on this list. Constellations don't really change his rating for me, and the only significant one that stands out is C2. But with the many sacrificial weapons in the game, and I feel that most meta comps currently don't really require that little bit of cooldown reduction. In that sense, I feel Chongyun belongs in the A tier. A good character that does well in his niche, but might not be versatile enough to be played in the majority of comps that requires a Cryo unit. In contrast, Diana is a defensive Cryo support with shielding, healing, and energy generation capabilities. If you're looking to break shields quickly or need amazing Cryo application, Diana probably won't be that Cryo support for you, given that she has extremely poor Cryo application. But she pretty much works as an amazing second Cryo unit to battery the main Cryo damage dealer, like Ayaka or Ganyu, while also providing solid sustain. My only gripe with Diana is that she doesn't provide unparalleled value in non-Cryo main DPS teams. So in this sense, I'll rank Diana both as S tier and A+ tier at the same time, depending if you have a Cryo DPS or not a Cryo DPS. Rosaria. She's an offensive Cryo burst support that is known for excellent Cryo application with decent team buffing capabilities and off-field damage. Before units like Kokomi, Rosaria saw much less play since Diana's kit just offered too much value in a team comp, like the popular Freeze Morgana, a team consisting of Ganyu, Venti, Mona, and Diana. But with Hydro Applier and Healer like Kokomi, Diana's defensive capabilities became less of a value compared to the offensive nature of Rosaria's kit. Her crit buffing and Cryo application creates an easy freeze comp with Kokomi. She's also able to be ran in a single Cryo team given her relatively low cost burst and self-energy refund with some constellations, making her very flexible if you need a Cryo applier. Her E also has a gap close, which is pretty valuable to close distances and reposition your team. A combination of Shenhe and Rosaria's E does feel very fluid to play. Personally, I value characters' kits with high flexibility and versatility, and my rating of Rosaria reflects that. S tier in my opinion, and overall the best Cryo 4-star who scales well with constellations. Kea is very similar to Rosaria in terms of purpose. He is an offensive support in nature and flexible in terms of team comps. In my opinion, he's the second best free-to-play character, and I will always recommend fresh players to invest in him out of the starting set. The only reason why he loses out to Rosaria in this tier list is because his constellations are extremely difficult to get. But on a C0 to C0 comparison, I will actually rank them almost equally, but A+ tier. And if you all enjoyed this tier list, do consider liking and subscribing. By the way, one lucky person who comments something that makes my day in the comment section below will win a Welkin Moon. You gotta be a subscriber though. Cheers, and EODGamer signing out.